Hi guys, good morning. Please confirm. Am I audible? You can unmute and you can speak out.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You're
sir.
audible.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
also,
yes,
right?
sir. Yeah.
Yes, you're audible here.
Yes, please. All of you mute your mics. When I ask you a question, then you can unmute and you can respond to my questions. Okay? All right. Right. Now, so this is Spring Boot and Microservices online training. Spring Boot and Microservices online training. Spring Boot and Microservices online training. This class is start course name is Spring Boot and Microservices online training. This class is started, this batch, this training started on 4th Jan. Timing of this course, daily class timing, 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. IST. As discussed, it is going to take 3 to 3.5 months of time. And session number, today it is third session. Session number 03. So already 2 classes are completed. It's just introduction about the course and the definition of the Spring Boot we have seen in the last 2 classes. Today is the third session. Anybody attending for first class today? Please speak out. Anybody joined for first class today?
Yes, yes. This is my first class.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. This is the first class.
Okay, good, sir. If you are joining for first class today, don't worry about that, guys, because last 2 classes videos are also available in our YouTube channel. So if you visit our website ashokit.in, here you can see YouTube logo. If you click on this, it will navigate you to our YouTube channel. Right now in the YouTube channel, if you go to playlist, if you go to videos, so last 3 classes videos available here: Spring Boot with Microservice introduction part and Spring Boot with Microservices session 2. Today's class is also available as a YouTube live stream. So total all the 3 classes are available in our YouTube. Who are attending for first time, please go through these videos. Please go through these videos which are available in our channel. And if you want to get the class notes, whatever the class notes that I'm writing during the session, please go to our website and register yourself for this Spring Boot microservices. So after the session is completed, I will send the email with the class recording and class notes also to your mails. So if anybody is not yet registered, please visit our website either in your system or in the mobile. Go to this website, click on register. It will open one Google form for you. So please enter your details. Yesterday also I have sent an email. If anybody is not getting the emails from me, that means your mail ID is not correct. Please check it and provide the correct email ID so that you will get the updates from me through email. Good. And the guys who are watching in the YouTube, guys, please, who are watching in the YouTube, you can find the Zoom details in the description of the video. You can connect with me in the Zoom for the interaction. You can interact with me directly in the Zoom. You can ask the questions whatever you have if you join in the Zoom. If you are watching in the YouTube, you can't interact with me directly in the live session. If you want to interact with me, please connect with me in the Zoom by using the details available in the description of the video. Whatever the video you are watching, in that video description, Zoom details are available. Good. All right. Let's get started with the today's session. Yeah. Before jumping into today's session, let me quickly recap what we went through in the last session. All right. Now, yesterday we discussed, in yesterday's session, we discussed about what is Spring Boot. Just introduction. What is Spring Boot? Anybody can tell me quickly what is Spring Boot and why this much demand is there for Spring Boot in the market? Can anyone tell me what is Spring Boot, guys? Speak out now. I want your answer. People who attended yesterday, what is Spring Boot?
absolute approach to develop the Spring Boot
Spring Boot is another approach to develop a Spring Boot application.
Yeah. Can I say Spring Boot is a separate framework?
No,
No.
sir.
No.
We should not say that Spring Boot is a separate framework. Spring Boot is an approach to develop Spring-based applications. Spring-based applications with minimal or less configurations. Spring Boot is an approach to develop Spring-based applications with minimal or less configurations. Right. Now, can I say Spring Boot is replacing the Spring framework?
No.
No.
Spring Boot is not replacement for Spring. Not replacement for Spring. Spring Boot is promoting Spring framework. Spring Boot is promoting Spring framework. Right. Now, what type of applications we can develop by using Spring Boot?
Any kind of application you can do.
Standalone.
Standalone applications,
Distributed applications.
distributed
Standalone web
applications,
application.
Distribution applications,
Standalone
standalone applications,
distribution
web
application,
applications,
web
distributed
application.
applications can be developed by using Spring Boot. That means whatever the application you can develop by using Spring framework, same set of applications can be developed by using Spring Boot also. What type of
Spring Boot.
By using Spring Boot, we can develop below types of applications. These applications can be developed by using Spring also. Same applications can be developed by using Spring Boot also.
Spring Boot.
Standalone applications can be developed by using Boot, and web applications also can be developed by using Boot. Next one, distributed applications also can be developed by using Spring Boot. Now, you may have your doubt. Ashok, by using Spring also we can develop those applications. By using Spring Boot also we can develop those applications. Then what is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot? Then what is the difference between Spring and Spring
Auto
Boot?
configuration.
Auto configuration.
Spring Boot provided auto configuration approach. Spring Boot provided auto configuration approach. Spring Boot provided auto configuration approach. Now, what is the meaning of what is the meaning of auto configuration approach? What is the meaning of auto configuration?
Spring Boot will identify the
identify the configuration.
Can I say Spring Boot is
automatically
for required configurations.
automatically Spring Boot can identify the
configuration
sir.
required to run our application. Can I say Boot is intelligent than Spring?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, because whatever the configuration which is required for your application, Boot is going to guess that configuration and Boot will provide that configuration for us. As a programmer, you no need to spend much time for the configuration. As a programmer, you don't need to spend much time for the configuration. You just concentrate on your application logic. Boot is going to identify what configuration is required for your project and it is going to provide that configuration. Spring Boot will identify the configuration which is required for our application and it will provide that. Spring Boot provided auto configuration approach. Boot will identify the configuration which is required for our application and it will provide that. But in the Spring framework, it is not that much intelligent. You need to tell each and everything to the Spring framework in order to run our application. Whereas in the Spring Boot, it will guess it and it will provide that configuration. Good. Now, what are some features available in the Spring Boot? Spring Boot features also we discussed in our last session. Spring Boot features are there. Now, here I'm saying that Spring Boot is going to guess the configuration. How it will guess that configuration? Based on starter POMs. The first feature that we need to talk about in the Spring Boot is Spring Boot starter POMs. Spring Boot starter POMs. Starter POMs. Starter POMs nothing but dependencies available for Spring Boot. Suppose if I want to develop a standalone application by using Boot, there will be a starter. There will be a dependency for that. So if I add the dependency, it will start the configuration which are required for running my application. If I want to develop a web application, there is a web starter. If you want to provide a security for my application, there is a security starter. If I want to send an email by using Spring Boot, then there is a email starter for us. Right, like this, Spring Boot provided starter POMs to simplify Maven configuration. What is the purpose of the starter POMs? To simplify Maven configuration in POM.xml. You no need to add several dependencies in the POM.xml. You just add the starter. Then Boot is going to take care of that. Boot is going to take care of the dependencies which are required. Version conflicts solution. So dependency version conflicts. Dependency version conflicts resolved. Dependencies version conflicts resolved. That means child dependencies. That means whenever you add a dependency in the Spring Boot POM.xml, Spring Boot application POM.xml, you no need to configure the version number for a dependency, because Boot will identify what is the latest version of the dependency which is compatible with the Spring Boot version it is going to download. Hibernate, there are so many versions available for Hibernate, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, like that. There are several versions are there. But for the whatever the boot version I am using, for this version of the boot, which version of the Hibernate is compatible, that will be identified by the Spring Boot and it will download that particular version dependency. The dependency version conflicts are resolved. But if you go for Spring Framework, you need to add the dependency and you need to specify the version also for the dependency. You need to add the dependency and you need to specify version also for the dependency. If any version conflict is there, then programmer is responsible to resolve that. Programmer is responsible to resolve that problem. But when you go for Spring Boot, it will take care of child dependency versions. It will take care of the child dependency versions. Guys, am I clear with this one?
Yeah.
Boot starter POMs and dependency version conflicts. What is boot starter POM? What is the purpose of the boot starter POMs? Which are used to simplify Maven configuration. Suppose I want a web application, just to add the web starter. Then it will give you dispatcher servlet. It will configure the dispatcher servlet. It will provide you server. It will deploy you your application also. All those things you will get just by adding one dependency. That is how they simplified Maven configuration. We are thinking and we are saying that boot is intelligent. How the boot is intelligent? Because of this starter POMs only. Based on the starter POMs, it is going to identify what is required for the project, what is required to run our application. Good. Now, third one, auto configuration. This is the powerful feature provided by the Spring Boot. Auto configuration. Already I gave you some example yesterday. What is auto configuration? Whatever the configuration is required, whatever the components are required to run our application, those things will be provided by Boot. Boot is intelligent here. Boot is intelligent here. Next one, actuators. Next one, actuators. What is actuators? Actuators are used to get the production ready features of application. Actuators are used to get the production ready features of our application. Now, sir, what is the meaning of production ready features? Simple. I have deployed my Java application to one server. I want to see heap details of my application. Heap details. How many objects are created in the heap? How many objects are currently referenced? How many objects are dead? How much space utilized in the heap? And I want to see what are all the URL patterns available in my application? What are the classes loaded by my application? What are the threads running in my application? What are the configuration properties loaded by my application? I want to see all the details. I want to monitor my application. In order to monitor your application, Boot provided a concept called actuators. In order to monitor your application, Boot provided actuators concept. Able to follow this? I think today morning, yeah, excellent. Today morning in the 7:30 class, today I have explained about the actuators only. Today in the 7:30 class, boot microservices class, I have explained about the actuators. Now, my project is running, guys. My project is running. I want to see what all the classes loaded by my application. Then localhost colon 9090 slash actuator slash beans. See here, these are the details that is giving. That means these many classes loaded by my application. This is actuator concept. This is actuator concept. Right now, one project is running on the port number localhost 9090. This is 42 application. Today in the 7:30 class, in the 7:30 batch, I have explained the actuator concept, which are used to get the production ready features of the application. Now, I want to see what are the URL patterns available in my application. That mappings. Now, these all are the URL patterns which are available in my application. These all are the URL patterns available in my application. I want to see heap details of my application. Then let's type heap dump. When I do the heap dump, it is going to download heap details for us. Heap dump is downloaded for me. That means I can open that heap dump in the memory analyzer tool and I can monitor how the heap is there in my project. I want to see thread details of my application. Then for that, I will go for thread dump. See here, how many threads are running in my application? That boot is providing all the details for me. These are called actuator endpoints. I want to see health of my application. Let me go for health. What is it saying about the health? Up. That means my application health is up. That means my application in the proper condition to serve the user requests. My application is in the proper condition to serve the user requests. These are called as actuator endpoints. Very good coordination today. In the 7:30, I explained the same concept, so I'm able to show you this example here. Able to understand what is actuators now? Can anyone tell me what is actuators now? What is actuators? Actuators are used to provide the production ready features of our application. Guys, are you able to observe what is actuators and what we are doing with actuators? Come on, speak
Yes.
out. So what is
Yes, sir.
actuator now? What is actuator?
Actuator is
monitor
nothing
our
but
application.
production ready
Production
features
ready
of
features.
application.
Actuators are providing production ready features of our application. What is the purpose of those production ready features? What is the
Monitor
purpose
our
of
application.
production ready
Managing
features?
Monitor
and
our
controlling
application.
the
Our
application.
application, heap dump,
Production
thread dump.
features are used to monitor and manage our application. Production ready features are used to monitor and manage our application. Is this clear for everyone? Starter POMs, version config solution, auto configuration, actuators. These are the powerful features given by Spring Boot, and these are the main advantages of going for Spring Boot. Anybody having any questions as of now?
Yeah, Ashok, in future, suppose our application maybe some almost crash, so it will be helpful actuators on that time.
Actuators, if
Huh.
your application is crashed, if it is stopped, then actuators cannot be accessed. Actuators can be accessed if your application is running.
So what are the benefit for actuators, Ashok? Because
Monitor, sir. Suppose keep on monitoring. Whenever the application health is going down, it will say you that application is down. Then immediately you can start finding the root cause of that.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Now, suppose I want to see the heap. When I look at the heap details, almost it consumed 90% of the heap. That means in in the future, in 1 or 2 hours of time, application might get crashed because heap is reaching to upper capacity. So such kind of monitoring we will do.
Okay. It's a good feature. Okay, Ashok, got it.
So can we do any monitoring over there, or can we get a notification of that?
No, sir.
Can we
Actually, notifications will not be there, sir. Just you have to hit the URL and you can okay, you have to access that URL and you have to get those details. But if you go for Spring, this support is not there.
By using Actuators, Hello.
Yes, tell me, sir, I can hear you.
Yeah. So my question is there any constructive tool by which you have shown?
Sir, your voice is breaking, man. Speak loudly.
There are few of the owners. So is there any constructive way like?
No, man. I'm sorry. I'm unable to hear your voice.
Okay.
Can
So
you?
my question is there any way to details in a constructive, including?
No, voice breaking.
Voice is breaking. Please type it. Type in a chat box. I will see that. I will answer. All right. Now, so Spring Boot is an approach to develop Spring-based applications with minimal and less configurations. There are several advantages are available. If you go for Spring Boot, easily we can develop our Spring-based applications without spending much time on the configurations part. Without spending much time on the configurations part, we can develop easily our applications. All right. Now, and one more thing, sir, in the Spring, we are having several modules. In the Spring, we are having several modules. Now, if I go for Spring Boot, can I use those modules or not? If I go for Spring, several modules are there. Can I use Spring? Can I use those modules in the Spring Boot or not? All right. Now, see here. Whatever the modules that you have in the Spring framework, you can use those modules in the Spring Boot also. That's not an issue. So Spring Core module is available. Can I use the core module here? Yes, definitely. Without having that core concepts, IOC container dependency injection, we cannot develop our application. Sir, in the Spring, JDBC is available. Can I use the JDBC here? Of course, you can use it. ORM, you can use it. Data JPA, you can use it. MVC, you can use it. Whatever is there in the Spring, whatever the concept, whatever the feature that is available in the Spring framework, that you can use in the Spring Boot also. Now, in the high level, if you want me to compare Spring and Spring Boot, suppose if you want to prepare a cake, so many recipes are required, so many ingredients are required, like egg, sugar, salt, butter, ghee, chocolate powder, like that. So many things are required. So many things are required. Now, if I purchase all these things from the grocery store, cake will be ready, or we need to prepare that cake manually? Guys, come on, please speak out.
We need to prepare.
We will be need to prepare it.
So we'll go to grocery store, we'll purchase all these things, and we need to bring them to home, and we need to integrate all of them, and we need to cook them. If we integrate all these things properly, and if we cook them, then only final cake will be ready. But if you go for Spring Boot, what is there?
Already prepared.
It is already prepared. You just need
Already
to
prepared. Okay.
Already prepared cake.
So do you understand the difference between Spring Boot now?
Yes, sir.
So in the Spring, things are there, but programmer has to integrate them by writing lot of configuration. But if you go for Spring Boot, everything is already integrated. Configuration is also already taken care by the Spring Boot. You just need to enjoy the benefit. So in the high level, did you get the clarity? What is Spring and what is Spring Boot? Why people for Spring Boot? Do you understand now? Yes. So if you go for Spring Framework, things you have to integrate according to your requirement. But in the Spring Boot, things are already integrated. You just need to enjoy that benefit. That's why in the market, lot of demand is there for Spring Boot. Very good. Now, sir, you are saying that from yesterday onwards, there are so many advantages are there with the Spring Boot. Some of them I have written here. Starter POMs, version configs, auto configuration, actuators, things are there. Now, is there any disadvantage of going for Spring Boot? Are there any drawbacks of going for Spring Boot? Disadvantages. Is there any disadvantage of going for Spring Boot? Actually, we should not say that as a disadvantage, but there is a limitation. There is one limitation in the Spring Boot. It is suitable. Spring Boot is suitable Spring Boot is suitable for brand new projects. Spring Boot is suitable for brand new projects. That means if you are starting your project from the scratch, then you can use the Spring Boot. Then you can use the Spring Boot. Sir, my project is already available in the Spring framework. Can I migrate my project from Spring Boot to Spring Boot? It is a time-consuming process. Migrating from Spring project to Spring Boot application, by converting Spring project into Spring Boot application is a time-consuming process. Because in the Spring, everything you will manage by using configurations, but in the Spring Boot, configurations will be taken care by the boot itself. So here, if you want to convert existing Spring project into Spring Boot application, then it is a time-consuming process. Actually, we should not say that it is a disadvantage. We need to say that it is one of the limitation. If you are developing a project from the scratch, then excellent. You can start with the Spring Boot. There is no issue at all. There is no issue at all. Good. Fine, guys. Please check your cameras. Stop your videos. It will disturb others. Stop your videos. Don't turn on your cameras. Whenever you are speaking, then unmute your mic and then you can respond. Good. If you are creating a noise, then I will need to keep everybody in the mute. Then session will not be interactive. You will feel bored. If you want to be interactive, live interaction now, if you go to other institutes, faculty will keep you in the mute. They don't allow you to unmute and they don't allow you to speak, because if they allow you to speak, you will ask the questions. They don't want to take that. But here scenario is not like that. Complete class should be interactive. Whatever the question you have, you can ask me, then I will be able to clarify your doubt. Okay, please, we are providing the best platform to you with the live interaction. So please don't misuse that. So if you are not speaking, please keep your mic in the mute. Don't start your cameras so that we can have smooth environment to take our classes. Got it? Yeah, guys, do you understand what are the advantages and disadvantages of going for Spring Boot?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what are the advantages? Can anyone tell me quickly?
Actuators, startup configuration.
Actuators.
Actuators,
Auto configurations.
auto
configuration.
Auto configuration.
One point we missed here. Yesterday we discussed
Dependency version.
dependency versions. One
Spring
more
Boot
thing.
starter.
Embedded server.
Embedded
Embedded
server.
server and embedded DB.
Embedded DBs.
Servers, embedded database support, embedded servers, embedded DB support,
Embedded DB.
Version control.
embedded servers, embedded DB support. These all are the features of the Spring Boot. Now, can you tell me what do you mean by embedded DB support?
We can
Can you
add
tell me
the
what is the meaning
artifact
by
ID
embedded
to
DB
modern
support?
XML.
We have in-memory database for the
In-memory database like H2.
That means
H2 in-memory database.
if you want to use the database for temporary purpose, then you can go for in-memory DB. In-memory DB. No need to install the DB, no need to set up. The database will come along with your project. Now, what is embedded server? What is embedded server?
Spring Boot provide the inbuilt servers also.
Inbuilt
don't need
server.
to, sir, we don't
Tomcat
need to
and
install
Jetty.
Tomcat Jetty servers. They are already pre-installed.
Yeah, whenever you are developing a web application, we need to deploy that web application in the server. It is a quite common requirement. It is nothing special here. It is not only my requirement. It is the universal requirement. So that's why boot people thought that everybody needs a server. Why everybody need to download and install that? Let us provide the server along with our project. Let us provide server along with the project. They provided embedded server concept. Tomcat we can use as embedded server. Jetty is there, Netty is there, like that. There are several embedded servers are available. Ashok, you are saying boot comes with embedded server. Can I deploy boot application to external server like WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss, something like that? Yes, that support is also available. They provided you an option. You have a flexibility. Whether you want to run with embedded server or you want to run with external server, that you decide. That you decide. Next one, actuators. What is the purpose of actuators? What is the purpose of actuators?
Production
monitor and manage our
application.
Production ready features. To get the production
application and monitoring the
application, we are going for actuators. To get the production ready features of our application, we are going for actuators. Right. Now, Those production ready features will help you to monitor and manage your application. They will help you to monitor and manage your application. Good. Next one, auto configuration. Things which are required to run our application will be identified by the boot and it is going to provide them. Next, dependency versions. What are the dependencies that you need? Hibernate dependency or Jackson dependencies or Kafka dependencies, whatever security dependencies, whatever you need. You no need to add the version number for them. Boot is going to identify that. Boot is going to identify that. Based on the boot version we configure. Next, starter POMs. What is the meaning of starter POM? Dependencies. So if you want to develop a web application, web jar files are required. Web MVC jars are required. You don't need to download the jars manually. You just add a web starter. Then boot is going to download all the jars which are required to develop a web application and to run the web application. These are the features of the Spring Boot. If you are learning Spring Boot, definitely you should know all these details. Why we are going for Spring Boot. That's why I'm repeating these concepts again. Next one, disadvantages. Can anybody tell me what is a limitation or disadvantage of a Spring Boot?
Spring Boot is suitable for
Spring
brand
Boot is
new
suitable
projects.
for brand new
Boot is
project
suitable
and
for a new project,
converting
that is
into
a scratch project.
Spring Boot is suitable for brand new projects. Now, sir, I have an application already which is developed by using Spring Framework. Now, can I convert that application into Spring Boot? We can do it. Nothing
You
is
can do it, but it's
we
taking
can do
more
Not
time.
recommended.
More time.
It is time consuming process. It is a time taking process. You need to spend a lot of time to convert your Spring application, Spring project to Spring Boot application. Spring project to Spring Boot application. So with this, are you guys good with the introduction part of the Spring Boot? What is Spring Boot? What are the features provided by Spring Boot? And what are the disadvantages of the Spring Boot?
Yes, sir.
Comfortable. Now, creating Spring Boot application. I want to create first application by using Spring Boot. Creating Spring Boot application. Now, guys, see here, in order to create Spring Boot application, Pivotal team provided one concept called Spring Boot Spring Initializer. So to create Spring Boot applications, Spring team provided initializer concept. Spring team provided initializer concept that is called start.spring.io URL. So by using this URL, we can create our Spring Boot application. Start.spring.io. Now let me access it. Sir, can I create the boot application? As of now, sir, why are you saying to create a project in the website? Why don't you create a project in the IDE? We know Eclipse IDE, we know ToolSuite IDE, we know IntelliJ also. Why are you going to create the project in the initializer? I will tell you the reason. If you use any IDE to create the boot application, in the background, they will communicate with this website only. So directly you can create the boot application from this website, or you can create the boot application from the IDE. If you create the application from the IDE also, internally, our IDE will communicate with the Spring Initializer website. That will be a web service communication. Our IDE, STS IDE, or Eclipse IDE, or IntelliJ IDE, in the background, they will interact with this website only to create the boot application. So what is the approach we need to follow to create the boot applications? What is the approach we need to follow to create the boot applications, guys? Spring Initializer. So how to access the Spring Initializer now?
URL.
How to access the Spring Initializer now?
Spring.io.
Start.spring.io. Good. Now let me access that start.spring.io. Right. This is Spring Initializer. You can change the color also. Theme also you can change here. So white color theme or dark theme you can use it. Fine. So most of the developers will like black color. Right. Now here in the Spring Initializer, you have several options to create the boot applications. We have several options to create the boot application. Spring Initializer. First, they're asking what type of project you want to create. Do you want to go for Maven or you want to go for Gradle? So boot project supports two types of build tools. One is Maven, second one is Gradle. You can choose it. Either Maven project you want to create or a Gradle project you want to create. And one more thing, language. What language you can use for the Spring Boot? Is it only for Java or it is supporting for other programming languages also?
Other programming language.
Other programming also.
By using
No.
No.
Java.
Java, Kotlin, Groovy. Sir, why? Because this Kotlin and Groovy also runs based on the JVM. Okay, so whenever you are creating a boot application, you can choose either Java or you can choose Kotlin or you can choose Groovy also. But as we don't know those languages, we are going with Java. Okay, next. So first thing, you need to select build tool, either Maven or Gradle, and you need to select the language, either Java or Kotlin or Groovy. Next, Spring Boot version. So the latest version of the Spring Boot, which is stable in the market, is 2.4.1. 2.4.1. And to be frank, don't give much importance to Spring Boot versions, because if for every 1 week, for every 10 days, new version comes from the Spring Boot. New version comes from the Spring Boot. Earlier, Java used it to release for every 2 years or for every 3 years. Now what happened? Every year 2 releases are coming from the Java. People are interested in the Java versions up to Java 8. After that, people stopped thinking about Java versions because 9 came, 10 came, 11 came, 12, 13, 14, 15. We don't know. For every 6 months, the new version of the Java is releasing into the market. But from the Spring Boot, for every 1 week, for every 2 weeks, for every 10 days, a new version is coming. You see here, 2.3.8, 2.3.7. After the 2.4.1 is came, that is stable. That is perfect now. 2.4.2 is in the pipeline. 2.5 is also in the pipeline. Maybe by the time we start our Spring Boot examples, one version may release. When I started my morning 7:30 batch, the version number of the Spring Boot was 2.3.1. But today it is 2.4.1. So very frequently, Spring Boot versions are coming into the market. So don't bother much about those boot versions. Got it? So we'll call it as 2.x. Currently, we are in the Spring Boot 2.x version. It may be 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5. I will call it as Spring Boot 2.x version, because every week or every 10 days, a new version coming from the Spring people. Good. Next one. Metadata. What is information that you want to provide about your project? Those details you can enter here. Currently, I'm not changing anything. I will keep them as it is. Next. They're asking packaging. What type of project you want to create? Do you want to create a standalone application? Then go for packaging type as a jar. How you want to package your application? Do you want to package your application as a var? Then select the var here. Do you want to package it as a jar? Then go for jar here. Okay, next. Which version of the Java you want to use? It supports for Java 8, Java 11, Java 15. Java 15. Anybody know Java 15?
No.
No. People are, as I told you, people are interested up to Java 8 only. After that, people not bothering about the new versions of the Java. Industry is also not upgraded to Java 15. Good. Now, here you can choose which version of the Java you want to use. Here I'm going for Java 8. I'm going for Java 8. Guys, do you understand what are the options that they are providing to create the project now? What is the build tool you want to use? Who is this? Anil Paneru. Anil Paneru, please mute your mic, sir. You are disturbing the entire session. Anil Paneru, please keep your mic in mute if you are not speaking. Please don't disturb the environment. Right. Guys, do you understand what are the options that we need to select to create the boot application?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what is the build tool that you want to use, and which language you want to use to develop this application, which version of the boot you want to use, some project details, packaging type, and whether you want to go with jar or var that you are going to select here. Okay. Now, next one, dependencies. I want to develop a web application. So I need web MVC jar files, right? I need a web dependencies. So the dependencies are called as starters here. dependencies are called as starter POMs. So if you want to develop a web application, then go for add dependencies. Add dependencies. It is going to give you what are the dependencies that you want to use. What are the dependencies you want to use? Now, I want to use Project Lombok. Project Lombok dependency added, which is used to generate the setters getters, which is used to remove the boilerplate code. Now add dependency. I want to develop web MVC applications. Right now, guys, see here, when I select a Spring Web, what it is telling about the Spring Web, can you please read it?
Build web.
Build web.
Application.
Build web, including RESTful applications using Spring MVC. Uses Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container. So that means when you select this web dependency, what all the support it is providing, you can develop a web application, you can develop a RESTful application by using Spring MVC. So Spring MVC is using in the Spring Boot or Spring MVC not used in the Spring Boot?
It is Spring Boot.
Using, sir.
We are
Using, sir, using.
Using. So some idiots will ask that what is the difference between Spring MVC and Spring Boot? Even in the interview also they will ask this question. What is the difference between Spring MVC and Spring Boot? To be frank, should we compare Spring MVC and Spring Boot or we should not compare?
We should not compare.
Not compare.
Compare.
Spring Boot
Not
and Spring.
compare. If anybody asks that question in the interview, slap that idiot. Because you don't know what is the purpose of the Spring Boot. Even when I faced the interview 2 years back in some company, they asked
now only, sir, many company also asking, sir. Most of
so many people are asking, what is the difference between Spring MVC and Spring Boot? Are idiot? First understand what is the purpose of the Spring Boot. Spring Boot is internally using Spring MVC module. What are the modules available in the Spring framework? We are using in the Spring Boot to develop that. What is the purpose of boot? It will reduce the configuration. That's it. We should not. Can we compare a cycle and a car?
No.
We should compare one car with another car. We should not compare cycle with the car. Here also we should not compare Spring MVC and Spring Boot. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If anybody asks you that question, please clarify them. Right. So if you select a Spring Web Starter, you can build web applications, you can build RESTful applications using Spring MVC. That means Spring MVC is using in the Spring Boot. Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container. So I told you embedded servers. So if you select this web starter, then Tomcat server also will be provided as part of your dependencies. Tomcat server also provided as part of dependencies. Can I say it is the auto configuration thing now? When you run your application, server also will start. Now, so do you understand how to use Spring Initializer website? Guys, all of you confident?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Comfortable with my voice, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't think I'm going speed.
No.
Sir, which build tool will use in industry, Maven or Gradle?
We will use Maven, sir. Some projects I will explain with the Gradle also. Okay.
Sir, you are developing web application, right?
Sorry?
You are developing web application, right? Sorry.
If you want web application, you can add this starter. If you don't want, you can remove it.
Yes,
Just
sir.
I'm
Yes,
showing
sir.
you how to add the dependencies.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If you are developing web application, you select jar right below.
A small point here, sir. Even if you create a web application using Spring Boot, you can choose jar also, no problem. There is a reason for that, because Spring Boot applications, whether it is a standalone application or a web application, it will run from the main method. So do you know main method? You know main method, right?
Yeah.
Public static void main. What is the purpose of main method?
It will start the
program, sir.
It is the entry point for program execution, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
But whenever you create an application by using servlets or Spring MVC, plain Spring MVC, will you use that main method, or main method is not required for web application?
Main method is
not required for main method.
Whatever you understood till today, that statement is going to change from tomorrow. Because if I create a Spring Boot application, main method is mandatory, irrespective of type of the project, whether it is a standalone or whether it is a web application. Boot application always will start from the main method. So if I have a main method, can I package my project as a jar file?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yes, that's the reason. So Spring Boot applications you can package either jar or var. Anything is fine.
If jar is accepting web application also, why where is it? We can use only jar, right?
You can use it. Anything is fine. So generally to give the, I mean, what I can say, if they give only jar file, people will be confused. Why var is available, right? But in the point of Spring Boot application, actually there is no difference between the jar or var. Either you can deploy your project as a var file or you can deploy your project as a jar file.
Okay, sir. So last one, sir. In jar file also we can add JSP file.
Anything, yep, I told you, right? In the web application, Spring Boot web application can contain all JSP files can be there,
Yeah.
themely files can be available, images, JavaScript, anything.
Okay, sir. Okay.
That you can package boot application as a jar.
Sir, in dependencies, unused dependencies also we can add, no, sir. Nothing will happen, no.
Nothing will happen if you add it. Unnecessarily, those will be loaded by the JVM into the meta space. Memory will be wasted.
Okay,
Okay. Memory will be wasted. Right. Now, like this. Suppose if you want to use the JDBC API, you can add. If you want to use H2 database, H2 dependency add, MySQL driver, PostgreSQL, Oracle driver, cache, MongoDB. So all, what are the dependencies are required for your application? We are providing the list of dependencies here that you can use to develop your application. Okay, dependencies also you can select directly from here. So this is the Spring Initializer website. Now, after selecting all the details, if you want to create a project, there is an option called Generate. When you click on Generate, that Spring Boot application is downloaded as a zip file. Can you see here demo.zip? Guys, can you see the demo.zip here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That means the project, Spring Boot project is downloaded in the form of zip file. It is downloaded in the form of zip file. Now, see here. Sir, every time I don't want to create the project from the initializer website because after creating the project, it is downloading in the zip. I need to extract that zip and I need to import into my IDE. That is an extra burden for me. Can I create the boot application directly in the IDE? So can I create boot application directly in the IDE? Yes, you can do that also. Let me show you how to create the boot application in the IDE directly. So if you create from the initializer website, what is the thing that you need to do? You need to extract that zip file and you need to import that project into IDE. Instead of doing that, directly you can create the boot application in the IDE itself. Directly you can create the boot application in the IDE itself. Let me show you. Here I'm using ToolSuite IDE, Spring ToolSuite given by Spring team to develop Spring based applications. Spring Boot applications also can be developed here. 1 second. I will use Spring ToolSuite IDE to create my boot application. Observe carefully. File, new, project. Spring ToolSuite IDE, file, new, project. When I choose this option, it will give you Spring and Spring Boot. Spring is there, Spring Boot is there. Spring legacy project, that means plain Spring framework without boot. Plain Spring framework without boot. If you want to create a boot application, then you need to select the Spring starter project. You need to select the Spring starter project. Click on next. Click on next. What is the URL it is using? Can you see the service URL? Guys, come on.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
What does that mean?
Is it initializer?
Yes, sir.
It is
Start
our
dot spring dot
IDE. Our IDE is talking to initializer. Our IDE not talking to initializer.
ID
is talking to initializer.
Initializer website.
IDE is talking to
To
initializer.
initializer.
So without initializer, can we create the boot application or we can't create the boot application?
We can't create the
We
boot
can't
application.
create the
Can't create the boot application. Now here, let me take some test application. Okay. Here also you can select. Type is Maven. Packaging is var. Java version 8, language Java. So what are the options that you are selecting? Same options you can have to select in the initializer also. But here, rich UI is available in the initializer. Here, normal window is available to select those details. Now, after selecting all the details, click on next. Here, it is asking which version of the boot you want to use, 2.3.7 or 2.4.1. and dependencies. Suppose if you want a web dependency, you type it here, then it will give you Spring Web. It will give you Spring Web. Now, when you keep a cursor on the web, what it is providing? Building web, including RESTful applications using Spring MVC, uses Apache Tomcat as a default container. Somewhere we have seen this message.
Spring initializer.
In the Spring initializer also same message it is displaying or not?
Yes.
Exactly. Now click on next. Here, this is the base URL. This is the full URL. So what is this full URL? This is the URL. Using this URL, IDE sending a request to the initializer website. Now let me do one thing. Let me take this URL. Let me take this URL. Let me hit in the browser. I'm hitting this URL in the browser. What happened? What happened?
Okay.
Same zip file is
It's been
downloaded.
downloaded.
Same zip file download.
Zip file is downloading. So now can I say it is a web service communication now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Can I say it is a web service communication?
Yes, sir.
IDE is one application. IDE is one project. Okay. Now initializer is one project. It is available somewhere. It is available somewhere. Now this is my STS IDE. This is STS IDE. So this is STS IDE running in my system. It is my computer. Now, where is this initializer website available? Is it available in our system or it is not available in our system?
Not available in our. It is not available in our
It
system.
may be assume that it is available in the USA. It is available in the USA. That website is running in a server. The server is available in the USA. This STS is IDE in my system. It is in Hyderabad location. Now, when I create a project using this STS IDE, is it communicating with that website or it is not communicating with that website?
It is communicating to the website.
Can I say these are two different applications now? STS is one application, start.spring.io is one application. One is start.spring.io is a web application. It is a web application. My STS, can I say it is a standalone application?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Is it a standalone project or not?
Yes, sir.
So can a standalone application communicate with the web application?
Basically
How?
not, sir.
Why can't, man? Web service. Two applications can communicate with each other or two applications cannot communicate with each other? Can communicate
with each other.
Can communicate. How they are communicating now? How they are communicating now?
By web service.
Through web service they are communicating. So STS IDE running in my system, Spring Initializer website running in some other system, two applications are communicating. If these two applications wants to communicate, internet connection is required or internet connection is not required?
Required, sir.
Come on, sir. Internet
Required.
connection is not required.
It's required.
Required.
Required, sir.
Required. Now, what is the conclusion? To create a boot application, net connection is mandatory.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand why I have explained this story?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you want to create a application from your IDE also, internet connection is mandatory or internet connection is optional?
Mandatory, sir.
Mandatory.
Mandatory.
Internet connection is now. Do you need to verify this? Do you need to verify this? Somebody will tell you. Other faculties will tell you. If you want to create the boot application, net connection is mandatory. Sir, why net connection is mandatory? We don't know. Why net connection is mandatory? Now, do you have that clarity why net connection is mandatory?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Why
sir.
net connection is mandatory?
Yes, sir.
Because there is a web service called
Internally, STS, internally IDE is communicating to
Internally,
the
STS communicating with this status.io.
start Spring
Even
IO.
though you are creating your project, even though you are creating your project by using STS, STS is talking to the initializer website in the background through a web service. If you want to make a web service call, then net connection is required. 100% clarity.
Yes, sir.
Got it. How many of you not aware of this?
Huh?
How many of you not aware of this?
I'm not aware, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm not aware, sir.
Yeah, most of them not aware.
Yes, sir. I'm not aware of this.
Yes, sir. Me also.
Good. Sir, content wise, 100% quality will be there. Just I need proper environment, proper support from you. Whatever I know from in the Spring Boot microservices, everything I will share in the class. Okay. Fine. So with this we understood how to create boot application. With this we understood how to create a boot application. Now tell me how many ways we can create the boot application?
2 ways.
2 ways. What are those 2 ways?
Using Spring
One from
Initializer.
Spring
initializer
initializer and IDE.
ID.
Practically 2 ways, but practically
One way.
One way.
Even though you use IDE,
One way.
internally it is going to talk to Spring Initializer website. But why most of the people will not use Initializer website directly? And it will download the zip, and again I have to extract the zip file and I need to import it into IDE. Instead of doing that extra step, directly let me create the project from the IDE. So I no need to extract the zip and I no need to import the project into IDE. That's why majority of the people will use IDE only to create the project. Even though you use IDE in the background, it will talk to Spring Initializer website only. Are you guys comfortable with this?
Yes, sir.
So with this we understood what is Spring Boot, what are the features of the Spring Boot, what is the limitation of the Spring Boot, and how to create a boot application. First application how to create by using boot also we understood. Got it? With this I'm stopping for today. Tomorrow we'll continue, guys. Tomorrow we'll talk about internals of our first application. Please don't miss the tomorrow session. Tomorrow session is very, very important. So when I run my boot application, how it is executing in the background, how auto configuration is provided to the Spring Boot, lot of internals we are going to talk in the tomorrow session. So today's class notes and today's class video that I will provide you, the people who attended for first time, please register here in our website. You will get a mail from us. Good. Yep. So before going to wind up, any questions, anyone?
Sir, we are using everything this full stack project and the Spring Boot with Eclipse only, no sir?
I will use different IDEs, sir, not only one IDE. Sometimes I will use ToolSuite, sometimes I will use IntelliJ also. Okay. For front-end development, I will use Visual Studio Code, VS Code, VS Code. So multiple IDEs we will use. Yep.
Sir, if you don't use any dependency, is there any default dependency will be available?
If you don't select any dependency, Spring Boot will give default dependency by default.
Okay.
So, sir, one more request here.
Sorry.
One more request here. If you start the session at 8:30 exactly, then it will be fine, sir. My work will be started at 10 o'clock. So
sure, sir. Yes, the demos are going on. I'm waiting for the people, sir. From tomorrow, we'll start the sharp by 8:30. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, sir.
How to make the payment?
I will update you that, sir. I will send you a mail. Please register here. I will send you the enrollment details. Please register your details in this website. Okay. Thank you, guys.